All right. So, what would be really cool to start with is, first of all, thank you for coming out to do this with us, Hedy. I know the InStage team has really appreciated the insights you've shared over the years, but it'd be great to hear just a little bit maybe about your background before we get started, um, and your career journey. What kind of led you into the role you're in now?
So thank you. I'm quite honored for you to ask me. I really appreciate it also, as I believe in the organization you work for, and I believe in the product in which you are presenting to us. I have found it invaluable for our students, and I know that they have certainly enjoyed it too. So I thank you.
Oh,
I started off in the hospitality industry for many, many years and moved into different positions from sales associate into management positions for a
wow.
large organization for about 15, 20 years, doing a lot of hiring and unfortunately some firing, and went into some directorship positions also within the hospitality industry. And I was leaving a particular position, and somebody from Seneca approached me and said, "How would you like to consider teaching?" And I
Oh,
said, "Oh my goodness, really?" And again, doing a lot of training that I did, I thought, okay, that would be a good move for me. So I started teaching well over 15 years. I won't even tell you exactly how many, 15 years ago. And then I moved into the business sector. And again, doing all the hiring and firing and training and so forth. It was a natural fit for me to go into career planning because I had a lot of background in that particular area. And then I moved on. I became the sort of the lead in the career planning course. And we have approximately, oh, I can't even tell you, well over 20 sections of career planning at Seneca. Some semesters a little bit more, some semesters a little bit less, but well over 20, I'll say. And I think the greatest thing for me personally is being able to share my experiences and share real life scenarios with the students. And when they have the opportunity to get their dream job, um, that makes me feel proud, because at the end of the day, what I have taught them has really enabled them to move forward with the information and become the best they can certainly be.
oh, that is awesome, Hedy. I'm again so happy to have you here and hear some of these insights. And I think it's always lucky when students have someone coming from industry with that actual real life experience to share with them and say, hey, I'm not just saying this, I've been through it myself. So,
Absolutely.
well, the first thing I'm kind of curious about, just especially because it sounds like it's been something that you've experienced at different stages of your career, is the hiring and firing that you would have had to do in those roles. So, uh, maybe to start with, the more interesting question, what kinds of things would lead to, the unfortunate scenario where you would have to let someone go?
Unfortunately, unfortunately, sometimes we have the wrong person in the wrong role. Okay. And if the person is not able to perform the functions that's required of a particular position, I don't believe that right away you should let them go. They need an opportunity to learn. But I guess before you even go there, when they applied for a particular position, did they have the skill set, have the knowledge? There must have been something that was attractive to the particular employer for them to bring them on board.
Hmm.
So they have to be able to perform whatever those duties, responsibilities are. If that particular employee is not performing, they should be given an opportunity to learn. There should be some training. Different companies have their own scenarios on their, unfortunately, firing process. But we all can learn, and we should be learning something every single day on the job or in school, whatever. We have to have a growth mindset. So I feel that, unfortunately, if the particular employee has been given opportunity, feedback, of course, and it's not working out, and depending on the organization, how much feedback for how many times do they, allow this employee to learn and feedback and learn and feedback, there comes a point whereby if that employee is still not getting it, then perhaps that's where, HR or manager steps in, and unfortunately may have to let that particular employee go.
That makes a lot of sense, and I've heard that at different points in my career as well. Someone put it well. I heard them say, "Once you get a job, you need to keep looking for work." And it kind of reminds me what you're saying here. Getting the job is definitely a huge accomplishment, but then it is important to keep learning on the job and finding ways to grow. And you're a great example of that, right? You had these different opportunities come at you, and instead of looking at it as, well, that's not my job, you kind of took it as an opportunity to grow and learn and move in different ways and change your role. So I think that's really interesting to hear, and I think people will appreciate just that reminder that once you get that dream job, to keep learning and growing.
Absolutely. And you know what? Also, I think that what's important is usually recruiters, headhunters, um, they're looking for people who have jobs. They're looking to scoop them up. It's easier. They want to look at people who have that job more so that they can scoop them up for another company. So better to have a job, learn, grow within it, acquire new skills, polish the skills you have, but always be in a growth mode. Always.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads me into another question I'm wondering here. So you went from
Segue, huh? It was a good segue.
that is, yeah, you're a natural at this, Hedy. Um, what I'm thinking now is it's interesting when you do a good job in one area, how it can lead to opportunities in a totally different area, right? Just
Absolutely.
like your story here, where you're working in the hospitality industry, you're making your way up the ranks, and then along comes this completely different opportunity to be in education. Um, for students that are trying to figure out what they want to do you have any recommendations on how to pick a starting point? Because many times I'll hear students say, I want to be the CEO of a company. And sure, that's maybe something you end up doing, but there's all these stepping stones that kind of lead to, one thing after the other. Do you have any, yeah, just guidance on how you got started or how you recommend students just start
Well,
their career journey?
I think the first thing you need to do, and I certainly do it with my students, is I have them do a self-assessment. What are
Uh,
their likes? What are their dislikes? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What is their preferred environment? What kind of environment do they want to work in? Whether it be close supervision or not. So they need to know about themselves. And I say to students, if you have some weaknesses, that's natural. We all do. We all have to admit we do. An employer's not going to turn around and say, oh, you're bad because you have a weakness. The question becomes, what have you done in the last 6 months to change that weakness and move it in towards a strength? And
hmm,
what have you done to keep that strength strong? So you have to look at you have to look at that, first of all, to know what you want. You also, again, through an assessment, we do something that identifies transferables. And a transferable skills is one that you can take from one sector to another. So what have you done? What are your transferables? What are they that you can take to a different industry? And again, a lot of employers expect the candidate to have the hard skills, the computer skills, the education, they need to have those. But some of the soft skills also, which might be problem solving or critical thinking, those are skills that employers are looking for in a candidate also. So I feel that, first of all, what also are you interested in? What
yeah,
hobbies have you had? What sort of thing would make you happy? You have to get up in the morning and be happy getting dressed and going to work. Okay. And
absolutely.
if you're not happy, you're not going to be the best that you can possibly be in that workplace. So you've got to really do some analytical thinking about yourself. And then you got to do some exploring. What do you like? Where do you want to be at the end of the day? And for many students, they don't have the experience, which is understandable. So
Yeah.
yes, you may have to start off in a junior position, but have your sights as to where you want to be. It's like a stepping stone. It's like when you're in school, you have your first year, or your second year, or your first semester, or second semester. It's a stepping stone for you to acquire your diploma, degree, whatever it is that you're working on. So you have to take the steps to get to where you want to be. Same thing with the career. You got to analyze, think about what you want, recognize what the needs are, and take that stepping stone. You may change careers along the way, but you've also got those acquired skills that can be used in different sectors. So I think it starts first with a self-assessment.
That's a great tool, and actually one that I don't often hear talked about, but it makes so much sense to do something like that and gain a little self-awareness into what things do make you happy. And and I think once you have that curiosity, then it's a little bit easier to take a next step. Because many times I'll hear students say, and I'll also hear people who are, have started a career say, I don't really know what I'm passionate about. I don't really know what I want to do. And I feel like they don't know where to start figuring that out. But something like a self-assessment makes total sense. Are there any ones you'd recommend, or is there a type of self-assessment or something?
Well,
Where do you find something like that?
there's a slew of them. There's a slew of them. Like what I do with my students, I think it's a series of 5 different assessments personally. And it's everything, as I said, from some multiple choice questions to a transferable list to a self-awareness. Again, it's rating yourself in different scenarios. And then, of course, your work environment. And then I have them, do some questions like, how would you market yourself? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you have to improve? Which weaknesses? How are you going to do that? So again, it's a series of questions that they need to look at themselves. And again, brainstorm what will make them happy. Where do they see themselves at the end of the day? But again, you don't want to be in a position that's not going to bring you happiness. Money cannot be the only driving factor. If you have a passion, you have the skill set or acquiring the skill set, you will get to where you want to be. And I'm going to quote, and maybe I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to quote a video that I
Yeah.
always give to the students, and it's called Grit. And it's on YouTube, and it's by Angela Duckworth. And it
Okay.
talks about grit. And grit is the passion, the determination to get to where you want to be. And because many students are focused only on grades, it can't be about grades. And they get disappointed if they may not acquire the grades that they wanted. But what did you learn from it? What are you going to change? How are you going to move forward? So it's that determination, that grit that's going to get you where you want to be at the end of the day.
I really like that. I'm gonna check it out. In Stage Team, can we put a link to that video in our posts so that anyone else who is curious about grit can see it as well? Thanks for recommending that one, Eddie. That sounds
Now, I
definitely
don't know if you can do that without any, if you could just, upload a YouTube video. I'm not sure. So you'd have to check on the legalities on that one. I don't know.
will do. We'll leave it to the tech team to figure out. Hopefully we can, because it sounds like a cool one.
And I have the link if you need it.
Okay, right on. We'll try to figure out a way so that when we make the clip about it,
Yeah,
it's easy to find and go and make sure it's
absolutely.
really.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem.
okay, well, I have another question, and we talked about this a little bit before, with even entering the workforce in general, but now I'm kind of curious about it from this angle. So let's say you figure out that thing that you're curious about, and maybe it's not your be all end all career, but you're excited about, entering hospitality or entering education or medicine or engineering or the arts. Um, but you don't have the qualifications yet. And I'm thinking of this more from, a mid-career professional level. Maybe you started off your career in something like banking. And over the years, you've decided, okay, this isn't quite for you. You're really interested in the arts. How do you recommend entering that new field without, doing anything too drastic? Because I'll often hear people say something like, oh, I wish I was doing this, but I don't want to quit my job. How do you, and I think this relates to students entering the workforce to begin with. What's the starting point to get some experience or exposure to that next field that might be of interest to you?
So I always say to the students, wherever you start, you have to invest in yourself, first of all. And for some students, and we've talked about the resume and so forth, um, volunteer work is just as important as paid work. And I say, what have you done to invest in yourself? May I share a story with you? May I
Please.
state a
Yeah.
story with you? So I had a student who was very gung ho getting into a certain industry. And this particular student was in semester 3 out of 4. Okay.
Okay.
And what he did is he called up a company that he was very interested in working for. And he said to them, I'm a student, I'm in semester 3 out of 4. I'm very interested in your organization and what you do. And this is a position I'm interested in. He said, may I possibly come 1 or maybe 2 days a week just to job shadow?
Hmm.
And the particular manager said that would be fine. So on his own time, when he did not have classes, he went to this place of business, paid for his own transportation, as I said, and he made himself um, that everybody wanted him.
Yeah.
Okay, he would do Joe jobs, he would do photocopying, he would do anything. He wanted to network with the people there. Okay, and he did that for an entire semester, and he went from department to department. Everybody loved him. And
Huh.
then it came time to his 4th semester, his last semester. And he said to the particular employer again, my fourth semester, I really enjoyed it. How did the people feel about me? And again, the employer said that they love you. Like, you just, they want you. Anyway, he said, could I volunteer again? And they said, sure, for their part, they weren't paying out anything. So
Right.
again, this particular student went and actually spent, I think it was 2.5 days. And again, started to get into it a little bit more. They saw that he was responsible, gave him a little bit more responsibilities, of course, with other people overseeing him. And at the end of the term, the employer called this student in and said, "So how do you feel it went for the last 2 semesters?" And the student said, I loved it. Like, I really like the environment. People are really nice. I've learned so much, and I thank you. And the employer said, what are you going to do now? And the student said, well, I'm going to graduate, and I've been working really hard the last couple of years, and I'm going to take a well-deserved vacation, and I'm going to look for a job. And the employer said, well, you know what? You've never complained over the last 8 months, and we were really happy to have you. So we would like to give you, as a thank you, $1,500 towards your mini
Wow.
vacation. And upon your return, we would like to offer you a full-time position. And they named a very respectable salary. And the
Oh,
student went, yes, 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 yes. And the employer said, I understand. Go home, think about it, think about the offer, and let me know within 24 to 48 hours. And
wow.
that experience was unbelievable
It
because
is.
that student invested in themselves. And I say to students now, who come out and they say, well, I don't know what I want to do for my program. And I said, well, what have you done to explore it? Have
Right.
you gone to job shadow? Have you done any volunteering? Because employers are looking for that on a resume also. So you have to invest in yourself.
100%. That is such a great story, I think, for people to hear for so many different reasons. One, like you're saying, that is a total investment in yourself. But I also like that it doesn't sound like they had expectations in a way.
No,
They were just,
no.
they were doing it because it's what they wanted to do. They wanted to
Right,
be part of it. And in a somewhat, completely understandable way, they integrated themselves in that company so that,
right, right.
yeah, it made sense to offer them the job. And
They
that's
became indispensable. That was the word I was thinking about. They became indispensable. People were relying
yeah,
on them. And it's a
that's
true story, true story.
yeah, that is so interesting. And the other thing I took away from that one is it wasn't like they took on a full-time job after school. They committed the time they could to it. And that might be different for everyone, but they made it work for them. And what a cool story.
Yeah,
That's a really great starting point that anyone could
absolutely.
use. Yeah.
And somebody who's working full time and wants to make a change, the same thing I would say. Reach out to people, a manager, an HR person, and say, have a conversation, invite them for a coffee. Say, I'm thinking of making a change, and have that conversation. What would it take? What are you looking for in an employee? That's a good starting point also. Again, invest in yourself. Don't expect people to come to you. If you want something, go to it.
100%. And I've found LinkedIn a great place for that, or asking family and friends who may
Absolutely.
know someone in a position. When it's coming from a genuine place of interest, people are excited to share their insights and stories. So
Yes.
I'd second that 100%.
I got to tell you a networking story. You just segued me into networking.
Oh yeah, please do.
It's funny because I was standing quite some time ago in a line for a coffee. I won't say where.
Okay.
And the line was quite long. And there was a gentleman behind me and another gentleman in front of me. And the employees were not moving very quickly, shall we say.
Hmm.
And we were standing there, and both of us were looking at our watches and going, oh my God, what's taking them so long? We got to get to work. And the person in front of me turned around and said, well, what do you do? And I told him what I do. And I said, well, what do you do?
Huh.
And he happened to have worked for a company in HR. And I said, oh. So we started chatting, and I said, do you have any open positions for X, Y, and Z positions? And the person said, actually, we are in the hiring mode. I said, wonderful. And I gave him a business card. And I said, I've got some students for you that might
Oh,
be
no
of
way.
interest. And then the person behind me said, well, I work in this company and I do so and so. Why don't you give me your business card too? So by the end, when we finally got up to order our coffees, I had made two connections, and it was just nonchalant. You have to be prepared, whether it's having a business card, a digital business card. But again, you never know who you're going to know.
Yeah.
So again, make that networking happen in a positive way.
A hundred
You know?
percent. And I think people are intimidated by the concept of networking, that it's always in a conference setting or always
Yes.
unnatural. But it could happen anywhere.
Yes,
And it could be something as simple as striking up a conversation at a coffee shop.
that's
That's
right.
that's again just so approachable, Hetty. I think that's a great tip. I think it's a
Absolutely. And
great
that's what
tip.
networking is about. Who knows who.
Yeah, it's
So,
true.
yeah.
And it does lead to if nothing else, an interesting conversation. Again, you're not kind of going into that conversation with expectations.
Right.
You're just you're just doing something you enjoy. You're getting coffee. Uh,
Yes, exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And you know what? If that person you're talking to doesn't know somebody, but you've had a great conversation, maybe they don't have an opening, they may know somebody else who does. So it can
yeah.
really lead anywhere.
That and even in a small way, if you're just having that conversation and sharing something you're interested in, that just grows a little bit in
Right.
you. And I always like to think, come time for an interview or even as part of a company, you're working with people. And like you said at the beginning, those people skills matter. It's not just are you able to use a software or
That's
a
right.
machinery or the tech involved. It's, you know, how well do you work with people? Are you able to make connections
Absolutely.
and enjoy the work environment and make it enjoyable for other people and little things like
Absolutely.
that add up big time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, it's funny talking about it from this angle when you think of now kind of the next step and maybe students got that opportunity or that volunteering student had to go do something like maybe a formal interview as part of their process. It almost sounds easy because some of the questions I get asked start having obvious answers. People will say, well, what should I put on a resume? Or what should I write in the cover letter? But when you've kind of taken those steps beforehand, would you agree? Some of it kind of writes itself at that point almost.
It does. I mean, if an employer is looking for a particular need in education, or they're looking for experience, you can't sway away from that. You usually have it or you don't. But what
Mhm.
I talk to the students is, if we're in a classroom and all of you have the requirements that an employer is looking for, you're all the same. So my question becomes, what's your point of differentiation? Why should they hire you? What
Mm,
do you do differently? And I have them identify whatever or however they're different, but maybe it's a second or third language that you speak and write. Maybe it's a certification that you have. Maybe it's the volunteer experience you have. Maybe it's a high GPA.
yeah,
So identify what makes you different. Because if the employer expects X from all candidates, what do you have that's X and Y? Why
yeah.
should they look at you? So you really have to do that self-analysis. And again, looking back, what haven't you done to invest in yourself?
I
So these
yeah,
points are
sorry, go ahead.
important. No, just because they're important.
They absolutely are, and they there are different opportunities to make that differentiation. I know
Yes.
when we hired some of our first developers, we were looking at hundreds of, like you're saying, students that had software engineering degrees.
Right.
But the ones that we were most interested in were ones who had made their own little website and posted games they had made. And
Right.
and these weren't products they had sold. They hadn't worked for a company. They had just done the thing they were interested in, but made it visible and made it something that we could look at and go, oh, look, like on their free time or in their free time, this is what they've done, that was a differentiator.
Absolutely. And that's what I say. The expectations are one thing, but again, what differentiates you from everybody that has the same?
Yeah,
And whatever it might be. And that's what attracts employers also.
that's
Also how well you write your resume. I mean, at the same token, if you were able to put statistics in there, show something that's concrete. You can't just say that you have excellent communication skills. Well, so does everybody else. But what have you done specifically? And again, if you can add statistics in places, they speak volumes.
they really do. And anything like that you can just, I think, be specific about makes a difference. Because I always like to remind students that just flip the table, pretend you own the company.
Right.
What sorts of things would interest you in
Yes.
your
Hiring
candidate?
somebody.
Yeah. Um, well, that,
Very true. The other thing I was going to add, you mentioned the word cover letter. I
yeah, I
always recommend to students that they should do research on the company. What do they know about them?
was gonna
Where
ask.
are they going? Where's their future? How do you fit into that? How can you add value? Because the whole thing is, quote unquote value. Why
Yeah,
should they hire you? So I also, as we talk about it in class, do some research on the organization. Don't do a Google. get into the get do some look up some articles on the industry, look on articles in regards to the organization, so that you can talk intelligently when it comes time to an interview, or even put some of that information on your cover letter. And again, excuse me, how that information and what you can do to add value perhaps to the growth of the company. If
Yeah,
they're moving into an Asian market and you speak the language, that's a great advantage. So what do you know?
so true. And I hear students get stumped on that kind of interview question all the time. Why do you want to work here?
Right.
And many of them default to, well, I want to make money.
Yeah,
And they don't necessarily instinctively go to, well, I want to be part of what you're trying to do, but that does
exactly.
take research.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, a question on resumes and cover letters in general. Do you think that just, from your perspective, that's going to be something that continues? Because I'm starting to see a lot more portfolios or kind of examples of previous work. Do you think the resume is going to stay the same, or do you see kind of that first level of screening changing in the future?
I think it depends on the company, to be
Hmm.
quite honest with you. Also just to add to that, if you want to and you can, and I tell the students to, you know, put in your resume per se, your LinkedIn link, because
Yeah,
LinkedIn has the ability to, there's a plug for LinkedIn, has the ability for you to add videos or add different things in there that you would, of course, not see on a resume. So add as much detail. I think that a resume per se will stay, but perhaps the formatting it might change. Cover letters, there's some companies that don't want them at all. But there has to be something that attracts the employer to the candidate to show them that they've got the requirements that the employer is looking for.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great tip. And again, something simple that everyone can do, but that might just not be obvious. So, um, I remember recording a couple of videos in my kind of later years of university and making a little video for the company and
That's
doing
right.
some of the things you're saying. And, I'm just summarizing some of the things I've learned about them, but that made a huge difference for me.
Absolutely. And that, again, a video like that can go on your LinkedIn. No
Yeah,
problem.
absolutely. Um, well, it's funny how quick this time is already gone, Hedy. I'll try to squeeze in just a couple more questions if you have time to stick around.
No problem.
Um, what one thing I've noticed is, of course, everyone is trying to figure out how AI is going to play a role in the future of careers here, and I'm starting to see a lot of AI generated emails coming my way. I'm starting to see AI generated cover letters and things like that. I think it's an incredible tool. Of course, our company um, leverages AI for what we do, and I'm just kind of curious. What are your thoughts on the technology? Do you have any thoughts on how it will affect entering, new jobs or new jobs it might create? Have you put any
Well,
has
I,
it
I
crossed
think
your
it's
mind at all?
I think it's going to create some new jobs. Let's be honest. AI is everywhere. Okay.
Yeah,
And it's not going away so quickly. So I think you've got to learn to embrace it and you've got to work around it, however it works for you. However, I still feel that a conversation like we're doing needs to take place between a potential employer and a candidate so you
absolutely.
can see their nonverbal, so you can see their reaction, so you can see how they're answering. I think it's great in certain scenarios. I know that utilizing EI in the classroom as I have has been mind-boggling and it's been fabulous.
Yeah.
Uh, but I still think you need to have that human component as we go through the hiring processes. And I don't think AI is going away. So you've got to learn how to embrace it in any way, shape, or form that you can. If you're going to use an AI generated resume or cover letter, you know, it may sound wonderful on paper per se,
Hmm.
but when you have a conversation with somebody and you ask them to explain whatever it was, and they're not able to, then there's where you could or might create and see some problems.
That's a
So
good one.
there could be some hiccups along the way of using AI. So it's got its pros and its cons.
Yeah, that's a great, great point. And I know I personally and our team as well really appreciates your approach to learning about this technology, but also making it work for us. Um, you are so right. We can't just use it and expect it to do the job for us. We kind of need to try it and test it
Yes,
and figure
yes,
out where it fits because it is a powerful tool, but it's just that it's a tool and something
that's
that
right.
needs to
It's a
be
tool, and you
part
hit
of
it
the
perfectly.
process. Yeah,
It's a tool. And you know what? As I said, it's got its place. But then again, if you're looking in the job market, you need to take it then to a human element.
100%.
And so again, the tool is great for however you're going to use it, but then the human component needs to come in.
I
So
agree. Yeah, it's there to support the things we're doing. So, thank you so much again, Hedy, for the time
my
here.
pleasure.
Yeah, it's already been a half hour, and I feel
Oh my
like we
gosh.
could. Yeah, I feel like there's so many more stories we could hear from you. So hopefully you're willing to come back on a future episode and share some other insights.
Imran, thank you. It's always a pleasure. We always tend to have good conversations together. And I appreciate your time and inviting me. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And make sure everyone, comment, ask questions. We will try and respond to all your questions as we get more and more info and insights from incredible guests like Hedy. So check out the podcast, and we will hopefully have you back for sure, Hedy, if you make some
Appreciate
time
that.
for us.
Excellent. Have an excellent day.